Every year in December, you do something your ancestors have been doing for longer than you can possibly imagine. You gather with the people you love, you light things up in the darkness, you eat more food than you should, you give each other gifts, you stay up later than usual and sit around something warm and glowing together. You call it Christmas, or the holidays, or just that time of year. But here is what nobody ever tells you. You are not celebrating a 2,000-year-old tradition. You are celebrating something that is at least 10,000 years old, possibly much older. And the people who invented it had no churches, no calendars, no written language, and absolutely no idea that one day someone would put a star on top of a tree and call it Christmas. They just knew that the darkest night of the year was coming, and that they needed to survive it together. Let's start with the most important fact. December 25th was not chosen because of Jesus. It was chosen because of the sun. Every year on December 21st or 22nd, something happens in the sky that ancient humans noticed long before anyone was counting years. The winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. The moment when the sun reaches its lowest point and the nights are at their longest and darkest. After the solstice, the days slowly start getting longer again. The sun begins its return. Light is coming back. To ancient humans who had no electric lights, no heating, no supermarkets, and no guarantee of surviving winter, this was not just an astronomical event. It was everything. The return of the sun meant the return of warmth, the return of food, the return of life, and they celebrated it intensely, every single year, for thousands of years before anyone named it anything. Archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson, who spent decades studying Stonehenge in England, made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about ancient celebrations. Stonehenge was built around 5,000 years ago, and when you stand at its center on the winter solstice, December 21st, the setting sun aligns perfectly with the main stone archway. This was not an accident. Stonehenge was deliberately constructed to frame the winter solstice sunset. Ancient people dragged stones weighing up to 25 tons from over 150 miles away just to mark this moment. They did not do that because it was a Tuesday. They did it because the winter solstice was the most important day of their year, and the celebrations around Stonehenge were enormous. Archaeologists found the remains of thousands of pigs eaten at massive feasts at exactly this time of year. People traveled from all across Britain, hundreds of miles on foot, to gather together and celebrate the returning sun. They came from everywhere. They feasted together. They lit fires together. They stayed together in the darkest time of year. Sound familiar? But Stonehenge is only 5,000 years old. The story goes back much further. Around 10,000 years ago, as humans began transitioning from pure hunter-gatherer life to early farming societies, winter became the most dangerous and uncertain time of year. You had planted your crops in spring. You had harvested in autumn. Now it was winter, and the food was either stored or gone. The animals had moved. The days were short. The nights were freezing. Historian Ronald Hutton, who spent his career studying ancient seasonal celebrations, documented that virtually every early human culture on every continent developed some form of winter solstice ritual. Not because they were copying each other, because they were all facing the same terrifying reality. The darkness was winning, and they needed to do something about it. So what did they do? They lit fires, huge fires, as many fires as they could. Fire was warmth, fire was light, fire pushed back the darkness. Fire was the ancient human answer to the longest night of the year. They decorated. Ancient Germanic tribes brought evergreen branches inside during winter, not because they thought it looked nice, because evergreen trees stayed green all year round, even in the coldest, darkest months. They were proof that life continued even in winter. They were symbols of survival. They feasted. Winter was when animals that couldn't be kept through the cold were slaughtered, which meant December was actually one of the few times ancient humans had fresh meat available in large quantities. So they ate together. They shared everything, because sharing was survival. They gave gifts. Archaeological evidence from ancient sites across Europe and the Middle East shows the exchange of objects at winter gatherings going back thousands of years. Not wrapped in paper, obviously, but given, shared, passed from hand to hand as signs of connection and goodwill at the hardest time of year. And they gathered, always together, because winter alone was winter death. Winter together was winter survival. Now, here's where it gets genuinely extraordinary. The ancient Romans had a festival called Saturnalia, which ran from December 17th to December 23rd. It was one of the biggest celebrations in the Roman calendar. Schools closed, businesses shut, wars were paused. People decorated their homes with greenery. They exchanged gifts. They feasted. They stayed up late and gathered with family and friends. Masters served food to their slaves. Social rules were suspended in a spirit of universal goodwill. Saturnalia was not a small thing. It was the Roman world's biggest annual celebration, and it happened in December, every year, for centuries before Jesus was born. When Christianity spread through the Roman Empire, early Christians faced a problem. The people were not going to give up Saturnalia. It was too important, too beloved, too deeply woven into the fabric of life. So in the 4th century, Roman Emperor Constantine, who had converted to Christianity, officially moved the celebration of Jesus' birth to December 25th. Not because anyone knew Jesus was actually born in December. Biblical historians and scholars, including Andrew McGowan, who has written extensively on this topic, have found no evidence that Jesus was born anywhere near December. Shepherds watching their flocks at night in the fields, as described in the Bible, would not have been doing so in the middle of winter. December 25th was chosen because that is when people already celebrated. It was strategic, it was political, it was genius. And every tradition that came with it, the feasting, the gathering, the lights, the gifts, the greenery, the fire, the staying up late together in the darkest days of the year, none of those traditions started with Christmas. They were already thousands of years old before Christianity gave them a new name. The Christmas tree? Ancient Germanic and Norse peoples decorated with evergreens in winter for thousands of years before anyone called it a Christmas tree. It was officially added to British Christmas tradition in the 1840s when Queen Victoria and her German husband Prince Albert were depicted around a decorated tree, but the tradition it borrowed from was ancient. The lights and candles, ancient humans lit fires to push back the winter darkness. Romans put candles everywhere during Saturnalia. Jewish Hanukkah celebrates the miracle of light during winter. The Norse burned the Yule log for 12 days to bring the sun back. Lights at the darkest time of year are not a Christian invention. They are a human instinct that is at least 10,000 years old. Gift giving? Saturnalia had it. Ancient Egyptian winter sun festivals had it. It is documented across ancient cultures on multiple continents. The 3 wise men in the Christmas story were themselves following a tradition of gift exchange at winter celebrations that was already ancient when they did it. Gathering with family? That is the oldest human behavior of all. Ancient humans knew that winter alone was dangerous. Warmth, food, and safety came from the group. The instinct to be with your people at the darkest time of year is not cultural. It is biological. It goes back further than any religion, any civilization, any recorded history. Here is the most amazing part of all of this. You do not celebrate Christmas because of Christianity. You do not celebrate it because of the Roman Empire. You do not celebrate it because of a Germanic tree tradition or a Victorian painting. You celebrate it because you are a human being. And human beings have always felt something during the darkest days of winter that tells them to gather, to light things up, to share food, to give to others, and to hold the people they love a little closer until the light comes back. That feeling is not 2,000 years old. It is not 5,000 years old. It might be as old as humanity itself. So this December, when you sit around, whatever makes you warm and look at whatever lights you have put up and eat more than you planned and stay up later than you meant to with the people who matter to you, you are not following a tradition. You are answering a call that has been sounding in the human heart for longer than any of us can count. Ancient humans heard it first, and they answered it the same way you do, together.